Alright, well, another chapter of my motorhome revisions slash upgrades. This is my little air compressor, and I think it goes up to 120 psi, and right down there, hope you can see that, is where I mounted the air fittings for my air suspension that I put in a couple days ago. And the reason I'm showing you that is because my other project is this, and this is one of the reasons why I decided to go ahead and put the air suspension in, was because I knew I was going to be carrying a load on the outside. Not only that, but I have a heck of a load on the inside. If you might have seen my other videos, you'll know that I put my toolbox in there, and it's a snap-on toolbox right there, big yellow, and there is a bunch of tools in there. And so naturally it weighs like 1,000 pounds probably. So, and that's on the driver's side, which is also the same side as the propane and the batteries and etc, etc. So anyway, so I put the air suspension in. That leveled it off because the left side was about 1.25 inches below the right side because of all that weight that was in there. And so I got it leveled off, and I'm like, all right, cool, so all that works. I got the heavy duty anti-sway bar put in from Hellwig, and so that came out really good, and it drives really nice. I drove it. So then the next stage is to see if my tow dolly and my storage rack are going to play nice together. They are not at the moment. You can see that I have a wheel chock holding up my storage rack, and that is because underneath the storage rack is the surge brake to the tow dolly, and as you can see, the handle to the surge brake was hitting the rack, excuse me, the hand to the emergency stop portion of the surge brake. And so so I've been trying to figure out how I'm going to resolve this situation. This is the second tow hitch that I've tried. The first one was way too close together. This one gave me room, but not enough room. And so just a minute ago I had a pretty good idea. What I'm going to do is I'm going to take this center bar out of the rack. The center bar runs all the way through. Underneath there you can see the bolts holding it all together. Well, if I take those bolts out, that center bar will come off, or this rack will come off of that center bar. Okay? So I can take the rack off of that. Then I can take the center bar out, take this bolt off, get it out of the way, and then take my grinder and take this little plate off. There's a little tiny plate right here on the inside of this. This is where the bolt support is. So I can take my grinder and get that cut off with a cutting wheel or what have you, and just get that out of the way. And what that's going to leave me is just the square 2-inch receiver. Well, guess what? This bracket fits on that square 2-inch receiver perfectly. And it's got what you might call pawls. It's got an extended part right here. So my thought is to take this center bar off with these basically dog ears attached, get all this other crap out of the way, take this center bar, flip it over so that the dog ears go over the top of this, and then take my welder and weld it all down on both sides. It'll take away the fold up function, but I don't ever plan on folding it up anyway because the spare tire's in the way. And besides that, I'm going to have my generator on here and my welder, and you know, extra fuel and all kinds of things. So it's not being folded up ever. So anyway, so the other good thing about that is I'll be able to actually move the load closer to the hitch, and that makes it a little bit more secure, and it reduces the leverage weight on the tow receiver. So, and by flipping it over, it'll give me another 2 inches of clearance, which you can see. I have the wheel chock holding it up about 2 inches, and you can see how that the handle is clear. And so by raising it the 2 inches both front and back, all the way around basically, that will give me the clearance I need. And so that's what I'm going to do, and I'll check back with you guys later and let you know how it goes. My first experiment was just to make sure that these Powells did fit over the beam, and as you can see, it does quite nicely actually. Nice and tight. Of course, before I get to welding it, I got to grind all this paint off because you want a clean surface to weld on. So, so that was the first part, is just to make sure that, you know, the parts did go together. The other part that I wanted to test basically to see how much gap was going to be remaining between the end of it and the center of the hole, and it looked like 2 3/8 is right at the center of the hole from where the new bracket would be, and actually I might have to take 1/8 of an inch from there also. And I need a minimum of 2.5 in the hitch for the hole itself, so I would have to pull it back maybe 1/2 inch, which still isn't bad because I've got a full inch here, and I'll have enough spots if I wanted to. I could weld it, you know, up against these other brackets and all the way around this one and on the inside. I mean, there's all kinds of places for me to weld it, so it'll be plenty strong. I got some helicopters flying over. Army, baby. All right. Well, that was interesting. I don't know if we've ever had that before. There's 3 of them bad boys. They're awesome. I don't know if they were Apaches or what, but they look pretty mean. Anyway, that's it for right now. I'm going to do some other calculations and make sure I got my angles right, because that's one thing about welding. It's really hard to take it apart and redo it again, so it's always better to measure several times before you start cutting and welding. Well, it's Tuesday. All right, talk to you all later. And it's the nicest day of the week, and it's supposed to start getting cold again tomorrow. And cold for Florida here is like 60. Today it's going to be around 70. So I wanted to come out and finish this video that I started earlier on my tow hitch accessories that I had been working on, and I was having issues with not having enough room. Now, let me put some tools down. Between the cargo. Sorry again. Darn it. The cargo piece and my brake, the surge brake apparatus that's down there underneath my cargo thing that you can see right there. That's the surge brake assembly, and there's a lever on the top, and that's the emergency portion of that brake assembly, and it has to rotate forward. And so because of the angle of it, when it rotates forward, it would raise up. It goes in an arch, so it would raise up and move forward. So that has to be free and clear in order for it to work properly. in any kind of an emergency situation where the trailer might break away from the tow vehicle, and that would activate the brakes on the trailer, or tow dolly, whatever you want to call it. Anyway, so my first tow hitch was similar to this, but it was too close together. It didn't give me enough space between them. So this is the second, what they call a double receiver hitch, ball mount, that I purchased. And this one has more room between them, but it still didn't have quite enough. And so what I ended up doing is changing the mount of this storage unit itself. All of this was actually flipped over, and it would sit up against this here. So it would be flipped over further back that way and down, so it was all one level as far as this goes. And that didn't quite give me enough room for the brake emergency lever that's right there. So what I had to do was take it all apart from these bolts right here and from here. Took it all apart, flipped this bracket over, which is this one that goes all the way through. I flipped that one over, and then I used the same two holes that we used previously for the pivot function, and I drilled the mounting bolt holes through the original receiver portion of the bracket. So I did a couple of things. I flipped it over, I moved it closer here because you can see it's about 1.5 inches closer to the hitch. And there's a reason for that also. The reason for that is because the closer it is to the hitch, the less stress it is on the receiver hitch itself. Okay? So the further out it is, the more leverage that it has, and the more stress it would create as I loaded this cargo piece up. The reason they had it so far out was for the tilting function, or folding. And as of right now, I don't ever plan on folding this thing. And so that's why and even if I wanted to, it wouldn't, because of where the spare tire is. But I don't plan on ever doing that anyway, and so this was the perfect fit fix for my situation. And so I still need to put a locking pin on each of these, and then this thing will be ready to go. So I finished that portion right there, and I just wanted to show you that now it does have enough clearance for that brake assembly to work properly. Another small job that I did while I was inside when the weather was nasty, because it was raining here a couple days ago, like it always does in Florida. I don't know if you can see that red pin down there, but that is a replacement. The one that came with this unit was actually too small, and it was really sloppy in that hole. And what that is the tilt function for this car dolly, and the lock pin to keep it in place once it's up here. And so what I had done was, it's still not going to do much of anything. It's not going to get lost. And so, and I did that on purpose. I made it long enough so I can go top or bottom, and I made out of super strong aircraft string, and then I heat shrinked over it to protect it, just in case it did hit the ground for some reason. And so that's one of the other things I did while I was inside, and the weather was nasty out here. So I got that fixed up and dialed in, and that was very nice. I like the way that came out. And then the way this cargo thing came out is really good too. Tomorrow the weather's going to get cold here again, and so tomorrow I'm going to go to Camping World and get the locking pins for those two receiver hitches there. And I already have one on the bottom. Yeah, you won't be able to see it really, but I already have one locking mechanism. Let me see it. Better. And so so I have one, and so now I need to get 2 more. And then this setup will be complete once I have the locking mechanism set up correctly with the lock pins and all that kind of good stuff. I'm going to go ahead and put my generator on here, my welder, my gas tank for the generator, and I'm going to put my car on here, and I'm going to go ahead and test the whole system and just see how it rides. I've already upgraded the suspension system on this vehicle, and so the suspension system is good to go. I've put airbags on it and a heavy-duty anti-sway bar, and so that's complete. And so as far as the vehicle goes, it's good to go. Now the receiver hitch is all set up, so it's ready to go. Once I get my pins finished, and that part will be done. And then I'll need to mount all of my stuff here and lock it down so it doesn't come loose at all. And then of course finish hooking up the trailer wiring and chains and all that good stuff. And I'm going to take it all out for a spin. I've got to take it out and see how it runs. The trailer itself has nearly brand new tires. I have the straps for it. They're inside the motorhome here. So once I get my car up there, I'll strap it down just like it's supposed to be. Put these emergency chains on. That's just a backup in case the straps break. And then make sure everything else works. And so that's the whole idea, is to make sure everything works. And so I'm real excited about that. And I'm going to shut off this video right now, so that way I can take you inside and show you that one.